For more than 3 decades, a woman named Janice McCall has kept the porch light on. She still remembers the exact moment she stopped worrying like a normal parent and started waiting like someone whose life had quietly split into a before and an after, the night her daughter graduated high school and never came home. "I expected her home that night, the next day, or maybe a couple of days afterward," she said, years later. Her daughter's name was Stacy McCall. She was 18. She just graduated Kickapoo High School in Springfield, Missouri, and spent that evening doing exactly what thousands of graduating seniors do every June, moving from party to party. She wasn't alone. Her best friend, Suzie Streeter, was with her, and so was Suzie's mother, Sherrill Levitt, a cosmetologist who had no idea that this ordinary Saturday night would be the last one anyone would ever know anything about her. By morning, all 3 of them were simply gone. No struggle, no evidence, no trace. This is the story of the Springfield Three. But let's start it somewhere different than most people do. Not with the disappearance itself, but with the warning that came weeks before it. 4 months before Sherrill, Suzie, and Stacy vanished, something happened at Maple Park Cemetery in Springfield, Missouri, in February of 1992. A 20-year-old named Dustin Rekla, who had been dating Suzie Streeter, broke into a mausoleum there, along with 2 friends, Michael Clay and Joseph Riedel. Inside, they vandalized a crypt, damaged 2 coffins, and stole a human skull along with several bones. Rekla later pried the gold fillings from the skull's teeth and sold them to a pawn shop in Springfield for $30. Suzie Streeter found out what Rekla had done. She gave police in Springfield a statement describing what he and his friends had done at the mausoleum. Word got back that she might be called to testify against Rekla in court. And according to people close to the family, threats were allegedly made against both Suzie and her mother after that statement became known. It's the kind of detail that changes how you listen to everything that follows, because this wasn't simply an unexplainable disappearance. It was a family that may have had a reason to be afraid, weeks before anyone else knew to be. June 6, 1992. Kickapoo High School, Springfield, Missouri. Stacy McCall and Suzie Streeter walked across the same stage on the same night. From there, the night unfolded the way graduation nights usually do. They moved between a handful of house parties across Springfield, celebrating with friends. By midnight, they'd ended up at the home of a friend named Janelle, where several classmates were planning to spend the night. But the house was already full, so Stacy and Suzie made a different plan. They told Janelle they'd swing back by in the morning. Instead, they drove to Sherrill Levitt's house on East Delmar Street in Springfield, the home Suzie shared with her mother, a property they'd only been living in for about 2 months. Sherrill Levitt herself had spent the evening at home. She was a cosmetologist at a Springfield hair salon, someone who'd built a modest, independent life for herself and her daughter. Around 11:15 that night, Sherrill was on the phone with a friend, talking about repainting a chest of drawers, the last confirmed contact anyone would ever have with her. Sometime after that call ended, Stacy and Suzie arrived at the house on Delmar Street. And sometime in the hours that followed, all 3 of them vanished. By early afternoon on June 7th, 1992, when no one had heard from any of them, friends grew uneasy enough to drive over to the house on Delmar Street and check. What they found didn't look like the scene of a crime. It looked like a house where 3 people had simply stepped outside for a moment. Both cars were still parked in the driveway. Purses, wallets, house keys, everything left exactly where they'd been set down. The beds looked slept in. No broken glass. No forced entry. There was only one thing visibly out of place. The glass cover on the porch light had been shattered, its broken pieces scattered across the ground beneath it. The Springfield Police Department was called that same afternoon. No blood, no signs of a struggle, no witnesses who'd heard anything unusual during the night. Word spread through Springfield within hours. By the end of the week, volunteers were printing flyers with 3 faces on them: Sherrill Levitt, Suzie Streeter, and Stacy McCall. Those flyers went up in gas stations, grocery stores, church bulletin boards across Springfield. Some of those same photographs are reportedly still hanging in a handful of Springfield storefronts today, more than 3 decades later. The Springfield Police Department brought in the FBI. The Missouri State Highway Patrol joined the effort. Search parties combed rural land outside Springfield for weeks. Investigators would eventually take in more than 5,000 individual tips over the years that followed. In the earliest days of the investigation, Springfield Police Chief Terry Knowles told the Springfield News Leader that officers had 3 to 5 people of, quote, focal interest. One of the first names on that list was Bart Streeter, Sherrill's son, and Suzie's older brother, 9 years her senior. Bart had a difficult history with the family. His mother had asked him to leave the house years earlier over his drinking, and he'd stayed away for nearly a decade before resurfacing in Springfield again in the fall of 1991, about 8 months before the disappearance. He told investigators he'd spent the night of June 6th drinking heavily and had passed out alone at his own apartment. His girlfriend and a neighbor later corroborated parts of his account, and he agreed to a police polygraph test. He passed it. Investigators eventually moved their attention elsewhere. That attention shifted back to Dustin Reckla, the same young man connected to the mausoleum break-in at Maple Park Cemetery months earlier. Reckla was brought in for questioning by Springfield police. He denied any involvement, took a polygraph test, and passed it as well. In August of 1994, he testified in front of a grand jury investigating the case. A third name surfaced as well, another former boyfriend of Suzie's, against whom a restraining order had been filed the previous autumn. He was investigated also, but he was never charged. One by one, every person close enough to the family to have a motive was investigated, questioned, and ultimately cleared. But not every lead in this case came from someone who knew the family. Some of the strangest evidence came from witnesses who didn't know them at all. 2 separate witnesses, in the days immediately following the disappearance, independently described the same unsettling detail: a green van. One witness told Springfield police that on the morning of June 7, 1992, she saw a blonde woman driving the green van just after 6:30, appearing distressed, while a man's voice from inside shouted orders at her. When shown a photograph of Suzie Streeter, that witness identified her as the woman she believed she'd seen behind the wheel. A second witness, 2 days later, described a similar scene: a green van, a blonde woman driving, and a man's voice telling her, quote, "Don't do anything stupid." Neither sighting was ever confirmed. No van was ever recovered. It's a question no one has ever been able to answer. As the years passed, the case attracted attention from men already sitting in prison for other violent crimes, who claimed to know exactly what had happened to Sherrill, Suzie, and Stacy. One was a convicted armed robber who told investigators he knew where the women were buried, then recanted, then offered different details again. Another was a convicted rapist with ties to a motorcycle club, who also claimed knowledge of the case, and appears to have used that claim as leverage to secure his own release, before committing another violent crime afterward. Neither man's claims were ever substantiated by Springfield investigators. As the initial investigation slowed, the case resurfaced every few years with a new anniversary, a new search, a new round of media coverage. Search teams returned to rural properties outside Springfield more than once over the following decades. 3 families kept living with a particular, unresolved kind of grief. In a 2017 interview with KY3 News, 25 years after that night, Janice McCall reflected on how unthinkable it had once seemed that she'd still be searching for her daughter after so much time had passed. She never expected to still be having this conversation. The Springfield Police Department has never closed this case. Advances in DNA testing and digital forensics that simply didn't exist in 1992 have occasionally been applied retroactively to old evidence. No arrest has ever been made. No suspect has ever been formally charged. The house on East Delmar Street still stands today, an ordinary home on an ordinary street in Springfield, Missouri. Sherrill Levitt would be in her 80s now. Suzie Streeter and Stacy McCall would be in their 50s. Janice McCall still answers the phone on the first ring. Every time, just in case. This is True Fledger. The porch light is still on. It has been for over 30 years.